2026 has been a pretty good year for fanfiction if you really think about it, because we had Heated Rivalry, which, if you were to believe the sources, is a Steve and Bucky fanfiction. And then you have Wuthering Heights, which is basically an elaborate Jacob Elordi fanfiction. Yep. Hey guys, this is Derek, and welcome back to another review. Today we'll be talking about the brand new Emerald Fennell film, Wuthering Heights. Mind the air quotes. So, the discourse surrounding this film has been a little unavoidable, given the circumstances about everything, including the casting, the inclusion of Charli XCX for the soundtrack, Emerald Fennell as a director/writer as in principle, and just about like every single thing that you can see, costumes, etc, etc, etc. Plus the fact that this is adapting Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which itself is a perilous territory to approach, one might say, given its numerous adaptations, including a Kate Bush song. So it's pretty hard to avoid the discourse. I will confess, although I do know about the story of the book, I have not read it to its full extent. So I can't say I will have the most faithful commentary about its adaptation to the movie format. The only biggest connection I had was the Kate Bush song. Let's break it down one by one. Let's start with the casting and the actors. We obviously have Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff and Margot Robbie as Kathy. Jacob Elordi has obviously worked with Emerald Fennell before, this being their second collaboration after Saltburn. And of course, Saltburn was actually like one of the first films where I was like, oh, Jacob Elordi, this is where he shows his acting chops, and he's not like the guy from Euphoria anymore. And of course, you know, this year he is in the Best of Supporting Actor race. Good for him. Now, I will not divulge into the controversial casting of Jacob Elordi. There are enough YouTube videos about that topic that I don't think I need to rehash it anywhere here, other than the fact that Heathcliff's, I guess, upbringing in the film is barely talked about, other than the fact that he was adopted by the family. Really, there's one scene in the beginning where you kind of see this foreshadowing moment where Heathcliff and his, I guess, prior father was kind of like being really rough with him. But other than that, you have Margot Robbie's casting, and I'm not entirely sure where the age range of the characters are supposed to be in the movie specifically, not in the book. We have a good chunk of the first part of the movie depicting them in their childhood, and then it kind of time jumps forward into the adulthood thing, where I'm not sure if Margot Robbie is supposed to be in her late teens / like early 20s, or if she's supposed to be in her mid 20s. I have no idea. Frankly, I don't think Emerald Fennell was also interested in fleshing out that either. So we'll keep it at that, I guess. I will say Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, I know there are some people that says, oh, they don't have any chemistry at all. I think for what it's worth, two Aussies from Queensland did a perfectly serviceable, fine job at portraying love interests. Is it the best chemistry in the world? Could have they recasted anyone else? Sure. But for what it's worth, what they're serving us on this plate, it's fine. I do believe it sometimes. And very specific scenes where I wouldn't even say sultry, but they have kind of like rapport going on, where I'm like, okay, yeah, it's believable that they have some kind of connection there. But then there are some just like, okay, it exists. It exists. That's it about Jacob and Margot. I will say Hong Chow as Nellie in this film does a very, very good job, albeit a little bit one-dimensional, and her character as well as Edgar Linton, both of them being people of color and yet seen as barriers as to Kathy's and Heathcliff's love romance story of all ages, seems a little bit ill-advised. We'll say that. As a whole, on paper, it's fine. And I'm not gonna like really dissect their acting choices per se. That might be the easiest thing to talk about this film. I also will say I really enjoyed the production design and cinematography and the costumes. Well, I know there are some discourse about the costumes, that the costumes weren't catered towards what should be like a period piece, basically. They might be a little unconventional, no doubt, but I think they are really nicely made. The production of the mansion that Kathy and Edgar Linton lives in is beautiful. I will say that I do think on the technical side of things, they did spend a lot of time on it. And then, well, let's briefly talk about the soundtrack, given its high profile name, Charli XCX. How should I say this without laughing? It works strangely, in the sense that, like, I think this entire film is a little absurd in general, so that when you have this additional absurd element that in theory should not work, like Charli XCX is doing this gothic, a little bit auto-tuned pop that's like all suspense and drama and none of the pretense kind of vibe, and I think in the spirit of the romanticism of the era, I think it really works in a really weird way. Like, there are some scenes where it's like just montages of Kathy and Heathcliff kind of like bonding or like doing something together, and then you have this dramatic auto-tune vocal effect from I think one of the songs was Anything Everywhere or something like that. That song, when that scene played, I think I deadass laughed out loud, but like in a good way, complimentary way. If you take nothing else from this movie, go listen to the soundtrack. I think it's a good experience to have. I'm not saying it's like necessarily a soundtrack that you will listen on the daily, but it's like a whole other experience in itself. Let's get to the elephant of the room. Emerald Fennell is a polarizing figure, as we can see. She has done Saltburn, Promising Young Woman. Both of these films are known for their, I'll just play that clip of Tina Fey.
And then Act 3 takes a sexually violent turn, and you have to pretend to be surprised by that turn.
The very polarizing reception of Saltburn. Promising Young Woman did get some awards buzz, so there's that. And then, if you know Emerald Fennell's visual language ahead of time going into this movie, there are two takeaways you can get from this. One, you're gonna be like, this is exactly what I expected Emerald Fennell film to be. A little bit horny. It kind of like ticks off the boxes of what you would expect an Emerald Fennell film to be, using sex as like a subversion of the genre and stuff. And the other takeaway is, oh, this isn't as sexy as I thought it was gonna be. Because if you see all the advertising, it's gonna be like, oh, epic romance of the ages kind of thing, and it's not really. It's a pretty tame story, if I can even say that it is tame. And like, this is coming from a director slash writer that wrote that bathtub scene that we all know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to show this and we will know what this is. This is definitely a film where style over substance. Emerald Fennell, the director, is operating at a different wavelength as Emerald Fennell, the writer, because on a directorial vision wise, it was very nice. The shots, I think, were planned out pretty well, but Emerald Fennell as a writer and trying to adapt this mega saga of a book into a 2-hour-ish drama film, I wouldn't say she cut corners. It just became a Jacob Elordi fanfic. It takes the fundamentals, the characters, just the characters, and I guess the setting of the 1800s of romanticism, and kind of just spins her own iteration. I know there was that interview was like, okay, this film is emblematic of my reading experience from blah blah blah.
So you can only ever kind of make the movie that you sort of imagined yourself when you read it, and then you can, I don't know, I think I was sort of focusing on kind of sadomasochistic elements of it.
But it really does feel like that. It feels like a self-insert / entirely different take of the book that in itself is already convoluted as hell, but in a way that kind of distills it down to a very simple love triangle-ish, fairly generic love story. There is some elements where you see Emerald Fennell try to use her very specific visual language, I should say, to subvert expectations of, like, you know, sex and sexual nature. So like that first scene with the hanging, it was black and you hear kind of like guttural moaning sounds, but instead, oh no, it's a hanging. So you have kind of like these moments that do exist in the film. I think the best way to describe it was that Fennell put the directorial cap on first as she was writing it. So like specific scenes work in isolation, but as a whole, it was a little bit messy, and that's kind of jarring at times. There are sometimes it's just like Fennell, in addition to the screenplay being a little weak, needs to work on her transitions. So yeah, I think that's my biggest grievance in the film, that removing the subtext from the fact that this was being adapted from Wuthering Heights, the book. If we even look at it as a film on face value, it's just a very serviceable romance film. Wuthering Heights, the film, it was a movie. This might be one of the more favorable reviews on the site. I've seen a lot of videos trashing on it completely, and it is completely fair. I'm just saying this really tested my limits as a person who typically enjoys almost everything he watches. I typically try to take something away from a film I watch, and this was really testing the limits. I think overall I did like it more than Saltburn, but there are just some elements that just can understand why they were the choices that were being made. At the end of the day, it's just a very British white woman wanting to make a adaptation of her favorite novel, but then be like, let me fix that up a little bit, to fix it. So yeah, I'm feeling a 6 out of 10 on this for me. So let me know what you thought in the comments, and I hope to see you on the next review.